One of the most influential books of this last half decade has got to be The Status Game by Will Storr, which essentially condenses all of human motivation and desire into three eerily simple games. The first being dominance, the second being virtue, and the third being success. It seems in life that we'll always be playing one or more of these games, even if it's not at the forefront of our consciousness. And that said, if we're forced to play these games, it makes sense to know the rules. And that's what we'll be investigating today. Welcome to Field Notes. Now, why do we even seek status in the first place? And if you really think about the question, is ultimately because we want to feel valued by other people. If you think about it purely on visual terms, why do people wear Gucci bags and expensive watches? You could say maybe they just love the products, but more often than not, they want to put across a certain essence of personality. Most often, affluence, high financial value. But that's not to say that status hierarchies only emerge around wealth. They often exist in the countercultures too. If you think about it on those financial terms, you can go to the opposite end of the spectrum where you can have anti-capitalistic lifestyles, sustainability, maybe even veganism. And that's not to suggest that one way of existing is better than the other, more than it is to illustrate to you that no matter what you do in life, as long as you're participating, you will find your way into a community eventually. And there are many benefits to existing within a community, in that if you have shared beliefs, you'll often feel validated when other people share similar ideas to your own. Due to human nature itself, we struggle to sit still. We're always seeking more. So often when we find these communities, eventually we want to get more involved. We want to learn more about it. We want to learn similar skills to other people. We want to develop and gain prominence and influence in this area that we have made a big part of our lives. And the issue with that, when you make your identity the group, when the group changes, when it evolves past your own sensibilities, it can cause you to come up against opinions that you no longer hold. But then you're stuck with a question. Do you continue with the group living a lie because it's easy social rewards, it's easy to score points? Or do you leave and seek something new? Now, before you go wandering off on your own, it's worth discussing why that can be a poor strategy sometimes. You only have to think back to the days of pre-civilization. If you are outside of the tribe and you wander out into the savannah, you might get hunted down by a predator, and even worse, taken away and tortured by another tribe. And even in a modern world sense, that fear of exile is incredibly strong, because the second that you exist outside of the group, if you need help, they're less likely to come to your aid. How we're perceived is just incredibly important. Even these videos that I'm making that are supposed to be a little more free flowing are still edited because I want to be putting across my best self. There's an aspect of my mind that worries if I just free flow without any editing whatsoever, then I will ramble, I will come across in a negative way, I will have too much empty space, and then that could be perceived as boring, a lack of energy, a lack of interest. And there is a real sense that we have this unconscious scoreboard in our minds that keeps track of how well people are doing. So it makes sense that we want to put our best foot forward. And just to reiterate, even though these scoreboards, these status hierarchies have the same functionality across different cultures, the tribes will often see value in different things. On the banner here, you can see a monk, an influencer, a soldier, and a scientist. The monk could find value in the mastery of meditation, whilst the influencer could be looking for her millionth subscriber. The soldier, on the other hand, might find value in getting his brothers out of a tricky situation, saving their lives, whilst the scientist might seek accolade, awards for curing disease. The influencer wouldn't make the best soldier, they'd probably reveal their location on the battlefield to the enemy. Likewise, the monk in stillness is probably not going to find the cure for cancer. Now, all of these characters have positive and negative traits depending on the communities that they exist within. What's interesting to me is they likely didn't become who they are randomly. It's suggested that over a prolonged period of time, we're most likely to become a version of ourselves that has had direction in the approval from other people. And now we understand why people play status games. We're going to explore each of the individual games. And the first is the dominance game, which is essentially intimidating your surroundings, much like Steve Clymer.
This is Steve Clymer, the outdoors ultimate enthusiast.
It's the most sadistic status game where the objective is to threaten your enemies, overpower them completely. And if you think of the state of geopolitics at the moment, you could say that war is a dominance game. The second game that we play are virtue games. This is essentially where we project our ideas and values into the world in hope that others will boost us up because they agree with us. Also, you can go the negative routes of it as well. If you want to score points, you can tear other people down. If someone has a belief system that you don't particularly agree with, then you can berate them, denounce them, essentially score points by taking advantage of division. And then finally, there are success games. And to win at success games, you need to bring value to the community. Now, dominance games might seem like a good idea if you're absolutely jacked and built like a Viking, but there are issues to completely dominating your opponents, and that is you isolate yourself within a sense of community. If everyone listens to you because they're scared, you might have created an illusion of order, but really there's no trust. Because if you've risen to the top by punching others around you, by the time you've got your success, you've taught others if they want to succeed as well, then they need to punch as well. And then all of a sudden, everyone's hitting each other. And this is a very stressful status hierarchy to be a part of because it's not about being right. Being right doesn't move you up the ladder. What moves you forward is making it expensive for your opposition to resist. An example of this would be the whole bricks and minifigs scandal that's happening at the moment. And if you don't know what that is, it's where a customer of bricks and minifigs has given the store $100,000 worth of Lego to sell, and he's willing to let them take a cut. But through some obscure legal means, Bricks and Minifigs has taken ownership of this poor man's Lego set without actually paying him. When he arrived at the store to contest this, to say, hey, these are my items, they essentially threatened him with a lawsuit saying, you won't be able to afford it. It will financially ruin you. All that said, if these are the behaviors that you put across to the world, then you're going to become quite a paranoid individual. Because if you treat people with a level of disrespect, the anticipation is people will treat you with that same disrespect. And in the case of this bricks and minifigs scandal, there's actually been cases of physical violence in stores off the back of this injustice. It's quite crazy to actually look into. Now, moving on to the second, we have virtue games. And on the surface, this might seem like quite a good game to play, but when you dig a little deeper into it, you realize that because it's so concerned with ethics and morals, it can often devolve into theatre. And what I mean by that is that you can end up saying things that don't really have any value and expect to score points off the back of it. One example, let's just say if you eat pineapple on your pizza, shame on you. You're very bad. That's evil. You're impure. Now, maybe you are the kind of person who hears that and goes, James Cunliffe, he doesn't like pineapple on pizza. He's a hero. I'm so glad I watched this video. My life is 10 times better for knowing that. But the honest truth is, you didn't. And if you did, you probably need more meaningful problems in your life, to be fair. And one of those problems you could concern yourself with was if you exist within a hive mind or not. This is a really interesting point because if you found that you exist within a community and that community has changed, it's evolved over time, what can often happen is new ideas can float through that you don't necessarily agree with. But one of the issues, if you don't go along with the group immediately, if you have alternative thoughts, if you play devil's advocate, or even if you challenge what's being said, even the tiniest amount, that can sometimes push you out of the group. And then you're outside of safety, you're outside of familiarity. And in a sense, virtue then encourages people to be vindictive, to be angry and aggressive, to overstate how you feel about the most relevant topics most of the time. So if all of this is true, which it is, then why do people play virtue games? And simply put, it's because it's the easiest game to play. It takes literally zero effort. You don't need to put any physical force into what you're doing. You just simply parrot what other people are saying. And I'm no saint. I've played this game a dozen times before, and it's almost impossible not to. If you exist, you will find that you have opinions, and if you state these opinions, you'll reduce your status in some people's eyes, but you'll raise it in others. But it's not the most valuable game to play. And the final game from the status game today is the success game. And the success game is all about delivering value to the wider community. It doesn't rely on punching people, dominating people, driving people through fear. It's not about condemning, denouncing, or even praising people. It's about investigating reality, discovering problems, and then finding a way of fixing those problems. From a cultural and societal perspective, this is the most important game that you can partake in. So the idea is that you are creating something that is beneficial to everyone else. People see you as a high status individual because you are genuinely helping them in their lives in some way, shape, or form. And by doing this, you can gain competence, you can develop skills, you can genuinely move the needle and be of real use to people. And this isn't to say that it doesn't come with its own problems. People can become envious. People can be vindictive towards your success and your attempt to go out and be bigger than you really are. And there is a sense that it's not an even playing field, because what do we know about society? In order to solve problems, in order to find problems in the first place and have the luxury of navigating those questions, you need to have enough resources to keep your base level needs met. You need to be able to feed yourself. You need to have shelter. You need to not be worrying about your mortgage and bills and potentially being displaced. Let's just say it's much easier to worry about success games when you've not got outside pressures forcing you away from looking at these problems in the first place. But when it comes to the subject of meaning and self-actualization, it's my opinion that success games are the most fulfilling, at least they are for me. One of the reasons that I create content on YouTube, why I teach courses and why I make things in general, is because I want to bring value to the world. I want to make the world slightly better than it was the day before. It seems as if technology has made status more visible than it ever has been. I remember before Facebook, there was MySpace. And before that, there was nothing. It was actually quite nice. But when MySpace came around, you had something called a top eight. And the idea was the higher up you were on your friend's top eight, the more status that you had. And lo and behold, this caused many arguments for teenagers across the world as they realized that maybe their friends just didn't like them as much as they did. Eventually, that evolved, and now we have the social media that we have today, where you have people with astronomical follower numbers and subscribers up in the millions. And all of a sudden, the tribe has extended to the rest of the world. And this is very confusing from a psychological point of view because human beings, we're not designed to exist in tribes of more than a small number of people. We have this base level hardware where we are subconsciously comparing ourselves to other people. And we're not doing this out of being vindictive. You just want to understand your place, how you fit into a community, how you can be useful. And in the world of social media, where you have specialists and you have people who are extremely talented, it's very easy to look at your own life and think, am I really that great a person? There's a big controversy in the UK at the moment where the UK government is banning social media for under 16s. And I'm struggling to understand where I sit on that really, because in one sense, social media can be great when it's tailor-made to make a sense of community, to bring people together, to provide information. But we've also seen the danger of algorithms and how that can influence people in the wrong direction too. Should everyday normal kids be comparing themselves to superstars? Should they be aspiring to be a celebrity and an influencer in the first place? And in a world where clickbait headlines and negativity grabs attention more than positivity, is it really healthy to perpetuate that negative narrative and drive a culture that's high in anxiety, that can't keep focus, that struggles to watch a video without music and fast cuts, that struggle to sit down and read a book? Having worked in the social media industry, I've seen the positives and the negatives. And my opinion about technology in general is it's an amplifier of human intention. And if we're now discovering problems with technology, with the way that information is released out into the world, I think there's probably deeper questions that we need to ask about the culture. I think in a world where we all crave status, where we all want to be seen at our best, an important message to put across is it's okay to fail, it's okay to stumble, it's okay to attempt to do difficult things, even if there's a risk that your status could be hindered in doing so. And when it comes to this controversy around social media, I can't decide if the blanket ban is valuable or not. And I'm going to have to think about that a little more. So, in closing, the question we should be asking ourselves is which kind of games do we want to play? Because the truth is, we are playing games all the time, whether we're conscious of it or not. And the purpose of this video, purpose of Will Storr's status game, is to ultimately give us the tools to realize when these games are being played against us and when we're involved in these games. Another key takeaway is that even though belonging to a group is necessary for survival, if that group evolves, if it changes to the point that you no longer agree with what's being said, what's being perpetuated by that group, that it can be more valuable to leave, it can be more valuable to explore new territory. It can be more important to chase after truth. Otherwise, you're at risk of letting your very soul wither away into something unrecognizable. But most importantly of all, if you do want to raise your status in the world in a positive way, you find ways of putting other people before yourself. It's good if you gain opportunity as well, but the mentality should be, how do I make the world better for others? What problems are people having that I can solve? How can I use the skills that I have to contribute, push the needle, improve the culture, and improve my status too? Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope it's been of value to you. And if it has, please consider liking, subscribing, leaving a comment, doing all of that useful stuff for me. I'd really appreciate it. And other than that, I'll see you in the next one.